Welcome to the TWTL podcast. I'm Chris Ferris, recapping recapping Wednesday night, the second night of BOTT 2017, Awaken again, and it has been an amazing service yet again. I mean, if you listen to our expectations video, you heard us. I mean, we weren't trying to predict or anything, but we felt in the atmosphere of the crowd and in the build-up that has been, that there was this it was like a powder keg in the foyer, ready to just explode with worship and praise, and it happened in those first couple of worship songs. I mean, the people just erupted in praise and worship. We didn't even know, I mean, every BOTT speaker speaks, but you didn't know if they were going to get to speak that long, because God took over in that worship and praise, and you felt the release. You felt the release of tension and build-up of what has had to have been a very difficult year for a lot of ministers. Maybe not in losing members, maybe not in the typical fashion, but in just the fights and the attacks of the devil. It has been a contentious 2016, not just in the political arena, not just in the social and the secular arena, but in the religious and Christian arena. It has been a difficult time in 2016. And it looks like in 2017 we're going to get breakthroughs. We're going to get an anointing that is going to see us through to victory. And that's another thing that I've noticed is in the sermons and in just the atmosphere of this. I know the BOTT is entitled Awakened Again, but I think the thing we're getting awakened to is not just what God is going to do in us and through us to see us to victory, but into spiritual warfare, because the messages that were preached today and tonight centered around overcoming the enemy, centered around overcoming the attacks of the devil. And I mean, that is what we have to do. We're not fighting flesh and blood. While others are fighting in the political form, and while others are fighting in the business form, while others are fighting in the secular world, we're fighting a spiritual battle. We're fighting the unseen enemy behind all the attacks on us. And to this BOTT 2017 has taught me is that God is getting us ready for battle. He's awakening us to a final great confrontation with the enemy that's going to see a harvest of souls, that's going to see a revival like no other. But in the midst of it, we're going to be taking down giants. We're going to be taking down enemies. We're going to be taking down authorities of the devil. And we're going to be building up the authority of God. Stewart launched after the great anointed praise and worship, when Brother Stewart got up, he launched into his message by talking about filters, and he used the analogy of a coffee filter and how when you put a good coffee in a filter, that pure clean water that runs through that filter is going to produce a wonderful smelling and tasting beverage. And I'm a big coffee drinker, and he made me thirsty for some coffee, even though it was late at night. And so he could paint a story. For those of you who haven't ever heard him speak, he's worth getting his CD, because he did an amazing job. He also started at the beginning of his message talking about a man who tried to conquer Mount Everest time after time after time. And one of the things that kept him going, it was a revelation he had in one of his failures, is that Mount Everest is never going to grow any larger than it's ever grown. I just have to grow my ability to conquer it. And that went hand in hand with this filter talk, is what we put in our filter is going to dictate what comes out of us, because God is going to try and flow through us. And what we put in our filter will be what our representation of God is to our community, to ourselves, and to those around us, and to our churches as well. He used two examples. He used this Moses and David. And Moses, you would think, when you look at his background, this is a man who had it all. He was the prince of Egypt. He had stood before Pharaoh countless times, more than anybody else probably, aside from a few others. He had stood before him certainly more than any qualified Israelite, and yet when it was time for his calling to come forth, he wilted under the pressure and his insecurities and his worries and his fears about little things that overcame him, and he couldn't do it. He had to even have Aaron go with him, and that was his filter. That was not his filter. That was what populated his filter. It populated his character. It populated his personality. It populated his very core inner being. And as a result, that affected him throughout his ministry. While he was a great man of God and he led Israel all the way to the promised land, he led them there twice. The first time they got to the banks of Jordan, he was commanded to send spies into Canaan land. And God gave him a commandment to go look at what he was going to give them. But Moses, with his filter of fear, anxiety, and insecurity and worry, expressed that command with those filters to his men. And as Brother Stewart pointed out, those men brought back a report that expressed their leader's filter. Moses' filter had produced men that were insecure. Now, yes, there was a Caleb and there was a Joshua. There were standouts. And even in our failures and our weaknesses, we can produce some standout people and some standout products in our lives, some standout things. But 10 out of 12, 2 out of 12 is not good enough. God wants 12 out of 12 success. He wants perfect success in us. And that's not just because God has an amazing high standard, but he believes in us. And we need to believe in ourselves. And when we allow the enemy to speak fear and anxiety and worry, these aren't this isn't pornography. This isn't, addiction. This isn't cussing and drinking and smoking. This is other stuff that can get you thrown into hell, as according to Paul. Fear it can get you as will have your part in the lake of fire. Fear can destroy you just as much as idolatry and adultery can. And we've got to look. The enemy's not trying to just attack us with sin, on surface level sin. He's trying to attack us with deep mental, deep soul crushing sins like fear and anxiety and insecurity and worthlessness. Those things that will destroy us rather than deliver us. And it took 40 years for Israel to overcome Moses' insecurities. How long will it take for those who we're leading to overcome our corrupted filters? How long will it take us to overcome that which is corrupting our filters if we don't go ahead and clean them out? The next thing, and that was one other thing, he said, a lot of people say, you got to clean out your filter. You got to have a clean filter. He said, there's nothing you can do. You're going to have something populating your filter. You might as well have it populated by things of God. And that leads us to our next example, which was David. And David was a man who had all the cards stacked against him. His brothers didn't believe him. His father didn't believe in him. Nobody believed in David. Saul took one look at him and said, well, we better outfit this guy with some armor. Otherwise, he's going to get his head chopped off if he's going to go up against Goliath. But David believed in himself because he believed in God. It wasn't self-righteous confidence. It wasn't prideful confidence. It was confidence in the Lord that gave him confidence in himself. It was faith in God that he was delivered from the mouth of a lion and a bear in defending his flock because of his relationship with God. It's his faith in God was bolstered by the songs that he wrote in the field. His faith and belief and boldness in God was strengthened by a commitment and an obedience to God to do the will of the Lord before he was ever king, before he was ever a soldier. That's how he could hear the words of Goliath and immediately get offended and want to take him down. Because when you have a relationship with God, you won't let anything tear your God down. You won't let any attack of the enemy destroy your confidence and your assuredness in Jesus Christ. You're going to defend him to the ends of the earth. You're going to defend his gospel. You're going to defend his glory against all attacks of the enemy. And that's what David did. But it wasn't just for David's sake that it happened. It was for other men's sake. For 40 days, Goliath challenged and mocked the people of Israel without a contender. When David took Goliath down, the next giant, it didn't take 40 days for an Israelite to take him on. It took a matter of seconds. And the next one, a matter of moments. And the next one, and the next one. Israel's mindset changed because of the filter of their leader. David had the right kind of filter. He had a filter of faith. He had a filter of boldness. He had a filter of confidence and obedience to the will of God. And that's what we have to have. We have to fill our filters with the things of God as much as we can. We cannot hold back those filters that God, those things that could fill our filters, those things that could fill our character, those things that could fill our souls, those things that could fill our lives with the things of God, and assure ourselves of victory in God and influence over those around us and influence in situations in our lives. It was just an awesome message. I know I'm going on a long time about it, but that's how powerful of a message it was. And from there was a great move of God of tongues and interpretation and a travailing prayer. That's one thing that I didn't see happening, was that travailing, authoritative prayer that went forth in victory after that message. After Brother Mark Morgan came up and he tied a bow on that message and continued it about overcoming the slumber and the sleep of complacency and taking up the cause of Christ in a more active manner. And that's what's going to have to take place if we're going to live with the right kind of filter. Moving on to Mike Williams. By the time Brother Reverend Mike got there, there was precious little time left, but he went through his sermon and delivered the message that needed to be given on believing the bloody coat, and the fact that we don't need to be believing everything that's presented to us. We don't need to believe every lie and every expression by man that we're not going to succeed as an organization. We're not going to succeed as saints of God. When the world says you are not going to succeed as Christians anymore, we need to stand up and say we will succeed because we are on the side of God and God is the winner. When people try and spread lies about us, we need to keep ourselves assured in the calling that God has given us. That no matter what they say, no matter what they do, they're not going to overcome us. They might be able to take our jobs down. They might be able to attack our church. They might be able to attack our character. But we will overcome because we have the blood of the Lamb on us, not the blood of their false accusations. And then also the enemy will try and attack us and present us with a bloody coat that says, your ministry is dead. Your calling is dead. Your purpose is dead, because 2016 proves it. You've had so many trials and strifes. You're not gonna be able to overcome it. You've made too many mistakes in the past. You're not gonna be able to overcome that and see your way through to God. There's no way you're gonna overcome. You might as well just quit and move on. That's a bloody coat that the enemy presents us with, and we just need to deny it. We need to say, no, you are a liar. You are the chief of all liars, and you lose, Satan. And just like Joseph, who overcame the bloody coat lie, to bring his family out of darkness, to bring those who even lied about him out of darkness. We're going to bring people out of darkness that we never thought we'd bring out of darkness. We never thought we'd be able to help these people. And we're going to overcome the enemy. And we might face trials. We might feel like we're imprisoned by our situations. We might feel like we're persecuted. We might feel like we're forgotten, like Joseph was at times. But you know what? If we will stay true to the cause of Jesus Christ, never forgetting that our calling is above all other things in our lives, that no matter what we face, God didn't give us that calling to leave us to die without fulfilling it. If we are pursuing God and believing God as Joseph did, we'll find God's favor in every situation we face. And we'll eventually find ourselves in exactly the right place to fulfill that which God has given us. I hope you've enjoyed this recap of the second night of Because of the Times. I can't wait for the day sessions tomorrow and the night sessions tomorrow. I hope you've enjoyed these podcasts so far. I've enjoyed giving them to you. Please consider going, just as a plug for our website, going to our store page and consider buying some of our digital downloads or even the physical book of The Way. It helps us to continue to do things like this for free. When you help support The Way with your purchases, it helps us continue to build and advance our website to provide the best possible content. So your one-time offering to us by buying something that is going to hopefully benefit you as well is going to help us to continue to provide these free services to you as well. So to think of it as when you buy something from The Way that you're actually getting a bunch of other stuff added into it as well. So thanks again for staying with us throughout Because of the Times. We can't wait to finish up tomorrow, and we'll have some more things, I think, on Monday, a final recap and everything. With that in mind, I'm Chris Ferris. This has been TWTL Podcast Because of the Times 2017. God bless and keep searching.